Hi, I'm Dr. Randall Kinnison, the founder and managing partner for Genesis Mediation. I want to talk to you about child support in the state of Oregon. Well, the state of Oregon has put together what's called a child support calculator. If you've gone online and Googled it, you've probably found it, and you probably tried to walk through it. It's pretty straightforward, but sometimes people don't quite know what figures need to go in where, so it can be a little bit confusing. So what we start with in Genesis is really, how do you want your children to live, not what the state of Oregon says you need to be paying each other. Because we find that's a much more important question than what the state requires. The state requires basic needs for food, shelter, and clothing. We talk about how you want your kids to live. That's a really different question. So oftentimes we build a budget for the kids, and we think about, what is it your kids do? Do they play sports? Do they like music? Do they have horses? You know, kids do all kinds of different things today, and it costs money. And so how are we going to pay for that? And there's going to be less money to go around because we're going to have two households now. So because of that, we have to figure out how it's all going to work, and how's it going to impact the kids, and maybe there's a few things they did before they aren't going to be able to do now, or maybe somebody's going to cut back somewhere else. But somehow, some way, we have to make all the money work, and part of that's around the kids. And so we find usually the most helpful thing is building a budget for the kids, and how much does it cost to do the things that they do, their sports, their music, all those kinds of things. What we don't factor in that budget is the basic costs of food and shelter and clothing. Now, sometimes we put clothing in the sense of back to school. Back to school can be a real budget buster for most families. So it all depends on you. You get to decide with your partner how you build that budget. Oftentimes we call this a child activity fund, and it's usually a joint account at your local bank. One or both of you have debit cards for it, and it's based on the budget that you build. One party, or sometimes both, will pay for the expenses, and the other party gets to see all the receipts to make sure it's all on the up and up. And here's the reason why we find it most helpful, is that you have the discussion, you build the budget, and then you don't fight over money. That's a really important thing. In Genesis, we're trying to keep you out of litigation, and we're trying to keep you out of future conflicts. And money and asking for more money is typically a point of conflict. We want to get you out of that cycle. So by building a budget and creating a joint fund usually helps tremendously to keep you out of conflict and make sure the kids are taken care of and money's now no longer an issue. That's a key piece. So we typically have some kind of way in which we arrive at that. For how that budget's going to be funded is called out-of-pocket expenses, and many times it's funded by percentage of income. That seems to be pretty fair for most parties. They like that it always floats, so if jobs change, income changes, it just floats with that. Sometimes people just say, I want to do it 50-50. Sometimes one of the spouses just say, you know what, I want to pay for piano, you pay for swimming, and they divide it up that way. Lots of creative ways to do it. The important thing is just stay out of conflict. We want you to stay out of conflict doing it, and we want you to center on your kids, make sure your kids know they're supported, and that you are getting along as parents to support your children. That's the key thing that we're out at Genesis Mediation, is helping you as parents be the best parents possible, because you're going to parent these kids the rest of your life. So we put in the child support calculation, we work through that, we take care of that, but the bigger question we want to deal with is, how do you want your kids to live? And that's what we end up with, is a way in which your kids will be taken care of and you agree on how that's going to work. That's how we do it in Genesis.